Welcome back to ADHD Skills with Jess and Alex. She's Jess, I'm Alex. Today, we're going to be talking about cooking. Jess, what do you know about ADHD and cooking?
That's funny you should ask because I'm actually not a big cook. My husband is, but I obviously had to cook for myself before. So what really helps me is sticking to the recipe and being in the kitchen, sticking to a recipe and also planning ahead. So if I had meals, I would look online, look in a cookbook, figure out what I wanted to eat, make sure I had all the groceries with me and really stick to the recipe. And also it's helpful is have a pen by you because you might want to make notes if things change or maybe you don't like that, you might want to make notes. Or if you forget that you have something, then you might say, hey, maybe I can't use this, but I'll use this instead. So very much for me is I am still a big recipe follower, making sure I have my timers going as well, because I have had the experience, I don't know if you have, Alex, where I burnt stuff in the kitchen and man, does it smell for a couple days. So
Mhm.
always make sure you have the timers going. And for me, because I would get anxious in the kitchen, I would sometimes check a little bit too much. Chicken cooking, I'd be checking it like all the time to see if it was done or not, rather than just letting it sit for a little bit. So sometimes what would help me with that is set a timer for when you want to check it, even though it may not be time for the chicken to be done. That works for me for cooking. What about you? Do you do much cooking?
I try to do a little cooking. Time doesn't always work out for me, but one thing I love to do on the weekends is smoking meat in my smoker. So barbecue is really what I like to eat. What I do with that is, I put the meat in the smoker when it's all ready to go, and then I have to check on it occasionally, but you can't check on it too much because if you're looking, you're not cooking. That's an expression used in the barbecue world. So, what I do is I usually have something on the TV while I'm smoking because it's a long process.
Mm.
Pork butt is going to take like definitely more than 6 hours, closer to eight,
Oh,
depending on
wow.
the size of the pork butt. So, what I do is I've got, a show on TV. Every time a new episode comes on, I check the temperature of the smoker. If I think it's close to being time to maybe give it a spritz with some apple cider vinegar or just check the temperature, I will open up the smoker, look inside, and then try to keep it open for as little as possible. So I kind of do use the timer system too. You know,
Mm.
one of the great things about technology is we've got timers everywhere. We got it on our phones, on our watches, and if we're watching TV, we can put a timer on that. So there's many different ways to time yourself and make sure that we've got a regular check-in time so we don't burn things, overcook things. The other thing I would say is invest in a meat thermometer.
I
It's
have,
gonna-
yeah.
That's going to help you know when things are done. Because sometimes with cooking, it takes as long as it takes.
Hmm.
I don't like recipes that say cook it for this long
Oh,
because depending on the circumstances, it might cook a little faster or a little slower. So, especially when I'm barbecuing, I'm checking it with a meat thermometer every so often just to make sure that we're at the right temperature. The other thing I'll say about cooking is you mentioned following a recipe.
hmm.
Following a recipe is really good for those of us who don't know what we're doing in the kitchen.
That's me, guys.
Yep. But a lot of us with ADHD are creative.
Hmm.
So experimentation has its place in ADHD cooking. One thing I did a few months ago is I took a meatloaf recipe, made the outside meatloaf, and then I stuffed it with cheese, made the meatloaf, and then I wrapped the meatloaf in bacon. So I had a bacon wrapped, cheese stuffed meatloaf that I threw on my smoker. I need to do that recipe again because it wasn't perfect. It was good,
Hmm.
but I think I can do better. There was too much of something in it. So experimentation is fun. The danger of experimentation, of course, is having food that's inedible and having to order pizza. So know yourself, know where you can experiment, where following a recipe is good for you, and then have fun. That's the other thing is we want it to be fun, we want it to be engaging to our brains.
Yeah,
Otherwise, we're not going to do it.
exactly.
I love putting things in the smoker and trying new meats and all that stuff. If it was like cooking spaghetti or doing other things that are more kitchen based, maybe not going to do it. But having that sense of this is what's fun to me, this is what's interesting to me, that inspires me to cook more.
Mm-hmm.
So
Sure.
if you want something in particular, cook that.
I think that like what going back to what you said, like if it's interesting to you, cook it because also you're experimenting yourself without even knowing, or you might be following a recipe. And it's okay to start with the recipe first because I have a lot of friends do this, and I don't know if you did too. Like first start with the recipe, and then as you feel more comfortable in the kitchen, around the smoker, the grill, you feel more comfortable around the food in general, then you kind of make it your own.
Mm-hmm.
Also, don't feel the need to, make sure I need to experiment myself. Like follow the recipe if you want to, and then you'll see you're merging to figure out how to make it your own. So,
Exactly.
no, it's pretty awesome stuff. I'd really be interested to what your people have to say, also what people have cooked.
Mm-hmm.
So, feel free to write down any recipes down below, and maybe Alex will share his meatloaf bacon cheese recipe. I don't know. We'll see about that. But I'm Jess.
I'm Alex.